All right, today we're jumping into a really fascinating cosmological model that pretty much flips everything we think we know about creation on its head. It's all based on a very specific reading of certain religious texts, and believe me, it challenges some very common assumptions. Let's get right into it.
So the whole thing boils down to one single question. What came first, the ground we walk on or the sky above us? According to the theory we're digging into today, the answer to that question changes absolutely everything.
Okay, so what you're looking at here is the main disagreement. On the left, you've got what most people probably assume. Earth came first, then the sky. But the author we're looking at, they say, nope, that's completely backwards. They're convinced, based on their interpretation, that the sky was created first and then came the Earth. This one reversal is the key to their entire map of the cosmos.
Right, so you're probably wondering, how on earth do they get to that conclusion? Let's break down the evidence for this sky-first idea. And fair warning, it starts off with a pretty bold claim.
Yeah, the author is not holding back here. This quote really sets the tone. From their perspective, believing the Earth came first isn't just a simple mistake. It's a fundamental error. And this strong conviction is built on what they see as crystal clear evidence in the text.
So the first piece of the puzzle is all about the language. The source points out that this exact phrase, the heavens and the earth, shows up 15 times. And crucially, the order is never, ever switched. For this author, that's no accident. It's not just a stylistic thing, it's a literal chronological fact. The heavens or the sky always come first.
Okay, but the real heart of this whole thing, the central pillar of the argument, comes from one specific chapter, or surah, of the Quran. The author unpacks these verses to build their timeline and, in their view, correct the common one.
This right here is the smoking gun, literally. The key phrase is, when it was smoke. The author's logic is pretty straightforward. You can't go towards something that isn't there yet. So if God turned to the heaven when it was smoke, that must mean the heaven already existed in some kind of early smoky form. It wasn't created after the earth, it was just shaped into its final form later.
And this leads into another big point the author makes. They say if you stake with the Earth first idea and try to add up the days mentioned for each event in the text, the math just doesn't add up. You end up with 8 or even 10 days, not the traditional 6. For them, this is basically proof that the whole Earth first reading has to be wrong.
Okay, so this is the timeline that, according to the author, actually works. On days 1 and 2, you get the sky. Days 3 and 4, the earth and the mountains are made. Then, on days 5 and 6, everything gets organized, and, get this, night and day are created as their own separate things. This sequence, they argue, fits the text, and, just as importantly, adds up to 6.
Now, this new timeline does more than just switch the order of things. It actually creates a whole new way of classifying everything in the universe. It splits things into what's fundamental and what was added on later. This leads to the idea of primary and secondary beings.
Think of it like this. You've got your primary creations. These are the originals, the foundational pieces made during those first 6 days. That's the sky, the earth, and even night and day, which are seen as their own distinct creations. Everything else, the sun, the moon, and a very specific group of planets, are secondary. They were all made after that initial 6-day creation week.
And this is where things get really interesting and kind of bend your brain a little. In this model, the Earth is not a planet. The sun isn't a planet, and neither is the moon. They're all their own unique kind of creation, totally separate from the things that are actually called planets.
Which, of course, leads to the obvious question. If the sun, moon, and our own Earth aren't planets, then what is? And the author has a very specific answer.
The number isn't an estimate. It's exact. Not 8, not 9, not some unknown number. According to this framework, there are exactly 11 planets in the entire universe. That's it.
So where does this number 11 come from? Well, the author ties it to the famous story of Joseph's dream. In that dream, he saw 11 stars plus the sun and the moon bowing to him. The author points out that the original word could mean either star or planet, and they take it literally. Those weren't just symbols in a dream, they were the actual 11 planets of our universe.
And it gets even more specific. The author actually provides their names, which they say come from a hadith. You've got names like Jaudian, Al-Tariq, and Du al-Kinifat. In this model, these aren't just ancient words. They represent the complete and final list of every single planet that exists.
Okay, stick with me because this brings us to the last piece of the puzzle, and honestly, it's maybe the wildest concept in this entire model, the real nature of the stars.
So, get this. In this worldview, stars are not what we think they are. They're not distant suns. They are something totally different. They have one job, and one job only, to be the security guards of the heavens, protecting them. This gives them a purpose unlike anything else in the cosmos.
And here's the real kicker. This is what sets them apart from everything else. The sun, the moon, the earth, those 11 planets, their numbers are fixed. But the stars? They are the only thing in the sky that actually reproduces and multiplies. In a very real sense, they're alive.
So how does this work? It's actually a pretty cool idea. The author describes this fabric of the lower sky that's kind of like a giant net. When big stars explode, they shoot out meteors. But instead of all of them falling to Earth, many get caught in this fabric, and they become the seeds for new stars. And as the universe expands, you need more guards, so more stars are born.
And to help us wrap our heads around this, the author gives us a really simple but powerful analogy. The stars are just like the lamps hanging in a mosque. They're fixed in their positions, they give light, and they watch over a sacred space. They don't wander around. They only move because the entire building of the sky is moving, which is why they are so reliable for navigation.
So when you put it all together, you're left with this completely different picture of the universe. One where the sky came first, where our Earth isn't even a planet, and where the stars are basically a living, growing army of guardians. And that leaves us with one final big question to think about. If the sky really is a living, guarded, and growing entity, what does that mean about the true nature of the universe we live in?